decent, beautiful people, how you doing? Welcome back to another anime reaction video. Huge shout out to AniNews for putting together this video, a video that I am really curious about. This is a spoiler-free, anime-only breakdown of how strong Jinwoo is in solo leveling, which I think is absolutely awesome. Now, it has to be said that an episode of Solo Leveling would have dropped yesterday, and I would have already reacted to that, so I don't know if there's been a big development. I'm recording this before I react to that episode, so I don't know if there's been a big development in Jinwoo's character just then. Maybe there has been. This is the first episode of Season 2, and a breakdown at that point. So, I'm really excited for this. I am really excited for this because I keep asking the question. Obviously, it's hard to get an answer without spoilers, and AniNews has done an incredible video to give people like us, or well, maybe just me, I don't know, but like, it's not just me, but anime only watchers, a spoiler-free analysis of where Jinwoo is, you know, how strong is he? So, how about I stop talking? I'm loving Solo Leveling Season 2, even though I've only watched one episode so far. I love this anime so much. I'm super curious about this. Shout out AniNews. Link to their channels in the description. Like the video. Subscribe for more if you want more anime reactions. Press the subscribe button. And let's jump into my first time ever reaction to how strong is Sung Jin Woo so far.
As strong as Sung Jin Woo becomes all throughout Solo Leveling, none of it would have been possible if not for the system. This is the very tool enabling his leveling, and it's the sole reason his body is even able to handle these powers. What serves as the foundation for all that, though, is the 5 core attributes Sung currently focuses on improving. The key stats defining his power, all of which enhance him exponentially the more he levels them. So, if we're going to understand how strong Sung Jin Woo is, we first need to understand what these attributes do for him. Strength increases all his physical stats, and that in turn translates to hitting harder and moving faster. Agility then allows him to see faster, and that in turn translates to an improved reaction time. Sung likes to describe it as time itself slowing down for him, but in actuality it's him just perceiving things faster. So the more
I'm actually already really liking the explanations here, because it's good to get sort of an idea of what all of those things actually do. You know, at this point in time, I've just been guessing based on like video game knowledge, like what they all do. But it's interesting that agility, like like, you know, but fighters talk about it, don't they? Like when they're in a fight, when they're really calm and relaxed, everything seems slower. And obviously, that's what it is.
he enhances it, the slower things start to appear for him.
God, that episode,
Next is
man.
vitality, and that increases both HP and stamina. 2 essential elements that make him tankier and less likely to hit the fatigue limit. Intelligence then only increases his mana, serving as the fuel allowing him to revive his soldiers infinitely. Lastly, he has perception, and this is what Sung describes as crucial information being transmitted in the form of sensation and feeling.
Honestly, all of these sound so incredibly important. Like, all of them. I also kind of love the idea of him just having super high intelligence and just sitting at the back and just constantly respawning like Egress.
He can sense auras and perceive the very flow of mana, allowing him to literally see just how strong someone was. So, now that you know what these attributes do, we can start from the beginning when all of them were simply at 10.
This
Sung
is
had just
already
been
a
entered
brilliant
into the
video,
system,
by
and
the way.
the penalty quest resulted in him gaining his first passive and active skills. Skills are the abilities he picks up from experience and runestones, which, just like himself, he can level up as well. They unfortunately max out at a level of 3, but it's after that that they can be upgraded to their ultimate versions. So long as Sung continues to become more proficient with them, he can eventually upgrade them into the most refined and effective versions of themselves.
I wonder what an ultimate version
For now,
looks
he just
like.
has tenacity and dash, but both over time become more and more powerful. So, tenacity is a passive that halves damage whenever his health drops below 30%, and there's been a couple of times where we've seen it save him from those really tough boss fights. Dash enhances movement speed by 30%, and this too would be a nice bit of utility we see him get quite a bit of use out of. Whether it be evading enemies or closing the gap between them,
struggle
there was
yet.
no downside
only
for
watched one
being
episode,
able to do
so.
things faster. Fast forward now to the dungeon in the subway, and this brings us to Sung's very first level up. He would equip Kim's sword, which enhanced his attacks, then use it to kill Lycans until there were no Lycans left. 20 plus of them would bring him to level 7, and the reward for that was a title calling him Wolf Slayer. As a
Man,
buff that
I'm
only
realizing how much
applied
I
when
love
the
this
title
anime,
was
actually.
equipped. It increased all his stats by 40% when fighting against beast-type monsters. Now,
that's probably why he
8 more
aced the
levels
bear
would be
so
gained while
easily,
farming
actually.
the 2 main floors of the subway dungeon, and another 2 after killing Kasaka on the 3rd. This brings him to level 17, which is also the point where he gets his first real weapon, Kasuka's Fang, which not only increases his attack damage, but can also apply the status effects of Bleed and Paralysis. Bleed decreases the target's health 1% a second, while Paralysis renders a target unable to move for a bit. Both were effects we saw put to very good use against Hwang's group. One more level would be gained after killing the golem from the dungeon break, and three more gained after defeating the C-rank spider boss. This brought him to level 21,
and that was awesome as well, man.
The emergency quest rewarded him with the brand new skill, Bloodlust. Bloodlust imbues the effect of fear onto a target or multiple targets, decreasing the stats of those afflicted by 50%.
When you like calculate like all of these, you know, he like has extra attack against beasts on what, 40%. He can get a dash increase of 30%. He can minimize like a health decreases under 30% or something like that. When he's like 30% less health damage, he takes is less than 50%. Which in a way you can look at it as when his health is up below 30%, it just doubles. Which is like a sort of an easier way of looking at that. It's not very complicated either way. And then the idea of the bloodlust, like halving an attack by 50%. So when you put all of this into perspective and stack all of those figures and all of the skills on top of one another, he's an absolute monster.
Only lasts for a minute, but for the intense aura it emanates, that's usually enough for Sung to get whatever he wants out of it. Now, it's a bit after this that Sung would ingest Kasuka's poison, and that would grant him quite a bit of physical damage reduction. This was only possible due to Kandyaru's blessing though, which was a permanent passive making him immune to all poisons, diseases, and debuffs. The tower dungeon brings us to Sung's fight with Cerberus, a grueling battle which in the end would reward him with 4 more levels and his first equip item. The item was the Gatekeeper's Necklace, and this improved both agility and perception. This unfortunately had to be worn in order for the bonus to take effect, but it did disappear once it was on. So luckily that made wearing such outlandish gear a whole lot easier. Another level would be gained after killing the Hobgoblin boss from the Kang dungeon.
I actually love it. I love it when you can do that in a video game as well. You see that in... that's one of my favorite things. It pisses me off a lot in a video game where the coolest and like the most strong armor is the stupidest looking armor, and the coolest armor is the weakest armor. And it's very odd, and I feel like game developers do it on purpose, and I don't know why. What I really loved about Hogwarts Legacy was the fact that you could change the appearance of your armor to look like any armor. So once you got all your armor, if you had 100 different like armors, you could take the one you liked the most and apply that appearance to the strongest. And I really liked, which is similar to what Jinwoo can do.
Another one after that for hunting down all its underlings.
God, that head dodge was so cool. It was
immediately after having defeated Kang, though, that the reward for that was a runestone bearing the stealth skill. This was the hidden skill which made Sung's fight with Kang much harder than it should have been. In fact, had it not been for Sung's perception which enabled him to track Kang's every movements, Sung knew he would have been killed by Kang for sure. Luckily, Sung didn't even need his eyes, since at this point in the story, his perception was high enough to know exactly where Kang was without even looking at him. It was another use for the stat aside from knowing whether or not to fight someone.
Yeah.
The primary reason he'd been putting any points into it at all.
It's something as simple in anime as being able to see someone else's aura and strength, I absolutely love.
So, by making this stealth skill his own now, Sung too could cloak his body and hide every single trace of it. He could easily approach enemies without being seen at all. Now, with Sung being...
I'll tell you what, like, having it outlined like this, because this is information we've been given. Having it outlined makes me realize, one, how much information I've actually missed, and two, how fucking badass he actually is at this point.
Level 27, this would be the point where he would start doing the 19 C rank raids with Jinho. The first day had granted him 1 level, 2 new skills, and a skill upgrade, then the second another 3 levels since the new skills were so incredibly useful. You see, Dash had improved to level 2, and that alone increased its buff from 30% to 40%. It was a huge jump that went to make Sung even faster.
Yeah.
The passive skill was called Advanced Dagger Technique, and this was earned after having fought with a dagger for so long. It was a reward for his ever-increasing proficiency with it, and as such provided 33% increased damage whenever he was using one. This also came with the brand new active skill critical attack, and this simply made it easier for Sung to target his opponent's vitals.
Ah, okay.
It provided
a critical attack is interesting because you don't know whether or not a critical attack is going to mean that every couple of hits you'll get a critical hit, or if it means that you can see critical spots. So in solo leveling, it's the latter.
The most optimum way to attack with his daggers, and as such would guide him to the weak spot most lethal to them, after which additional damage would be applied if the weak spot was hit.
So good.
That may sound standard given our own perception of critical attacks in video games, but for Sung this was a lot bigger than any of us may have considered. What I mean is that for him who'd just been mindlessly slashing in hopes of landing a hit, a clear path to maximum damage was literally game-changing.
True, actually. That
Before
is a
he'd
good
only
point. I
ever
never looked at
achieved
it that
a couple
way.
of times, but it's when he did that he knew the fight was over.
That is a very good point. That is a very good point, actually. I never looked at it like that. That is, and you know what? It actually makes a lot of sense because of how his combat style changed. That's actually really good.
With Kang in this dungeon, or the monsters here, Sung knew the moment his dagger made impact, the fight was finished. There was this satisfying feeling which made him certain of it. So, to be able to achieve that feeling with every attack, well, that was kind of like finding water in the desert. It had turned Sung into a monster-killing machine,
That is
essentially
such-
bumping his efficiency to the point that it was practically tripled
That is
now.
so interesting.
By the 4th day, Sung and Jinho would have completed 9 C rank gates, and it was at this point that Sung was level 39 now. One more would be gained while in a dungeon fighting against lizardmen, and this would unlock access into
I love the way
class
they
change
use the
dungeon.
lizard men from
An area
Overlord.
where 2 more levels would be gained while fighting assassins and knights, then 3 more across the span of 6 hours while getting to Igris. The knights he killed dropped some of the best equipment he'd come across yet, and the end result was a Sung who was pretty kitted now. Unfortunately, the gloves, ring, and shoes didn't specify what they did, but the breastplate and gauntlets both added another 10% physical damage reduction together. It also helped that the gauntlets prevented any injuries to the wearer's hands,
So cool.
an additional effect that would come in handy when fighting Igris. Once again, these armor pieces didn't actually hinder him, since the instant they were equipped, they would vanish as if not even there anymore.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
They did encumber him if a stat wasn't above a certain level, but that was a growth issue Sung never had to worry about. 2 more levels would be gained after defeating Igris, then another 4 while farming.
It's actually really curious because, like, these are all things that, because the pacing of solo leveling is so damn fast, these are things that are very easy to, like, miss, you know, and not fully understand. I also have to apologize. I don't know if this reaction is going to be mega interesting for a lot of people, because for me, I'm literally just, like, hooked in. Like, man, I am hooked in. I'm just focused and just watching this, and I'm just sucking it all in. Like, this, like, I loved Solo Leveling Season 1. I was singing its praises the whole way through, all the way to the end. If you don't believe me, just go check my Twitter, alright? Now, there are some other reactors who were shitting on it, and now they're saying that they like it again. Whatever. I'm not going to throw any shade. But anyway, I was, like, fucking loving it. I wasn't one of those people. I was loving it the whole way through. And Season 2, I feel like watching the first episode, despite how much I loved Season 1, it just made me realize how much I actually love this anime, like how fun this anime is, you know? It gives me like that Jujutsu Kaisen kind of feeling, and I really enjoy that. You know, it scratches that Jujutsu Kaisen itch in a really good way, and I love, I would say Solo Leveling is getting to a point where I love those two very similar, you know? And Season 2, Episode 1, if the whole season continues like that, it's going to be incredible. Especially because one of the main complaints of Season 1 that I saw from people was how it was like 3 episodes on, 1 episode off, or something like that. Or 3 episodes off, 1 episode on. And people say, like, it felt oddly paced for something that was quick-paced. But I have heard Season 2 is supposed to be even faster paced. And considering how fast-paced Season 1 was, it's going to be interesting, you know? Like, some people saying that they're putting 4 arcs into 12 or 13 episodes, which sounds nuts. But we'll have to see how they do it. But the reason I'm pointing all of this out is because how much information is actually presented in the anime is easily missed. So when you have a person like AniNews who breaks it all down, showcases it all, and actually shows us the information that we might have missed, it is mind-blowing.
Centipedes during the penalty quest. This had also brought critical attack to level 2, and that in turn increased the damage done when a weak spot was hit. More importantly than all that, though, was the first S-rank item Sung had earned as a drop from Igris. It didn't have an effect that made it anything particularly special, but the stats it gave were by far the best out of any of his equipment.
Physical damage taken reduced by 15%, health plus 20%, strength plus 20%. Level of difficulty S.
I mean, the 15% physical damage reduction alone made it top tier already, then those additional 40 stat points just made it better. It was as if the Gatekeeper's necklace and Kasuka's poison were combined into one.
True.
So, with that bringing his stats to this, Sung was ecstatic.
Strength 128, agility 107, sense. Everything is. I love that he is leveling up everything. I'd love to see his intelligence get higher though, just because of his summoning abilities.
From all the massive boosts he just received. In fact, it was actually a core part of making the centipede farming that much easier for him. The gold he got from that was then used to purchase Night Killer, and this would be the dagger Sung would stick with until the Red Gate. It was much stronger than Kasuka's since it tripled the damage it did, and it also came with the effect of doing 25% more damage to heavily armored opponents.
Damn.
Sung did consider using both daggers, but to him he felt that would be way too cumbersome. Like, if he wanted to retain mobility and remain flexible in combat, then Sung knew he needed to keep his left hand open.
Oh yeah?
Now, it was shortly after that Sung would finally activate the runestone he got from Igris. A new active skill called Ruler's Touch, which at its core allowed him to physically manipulate objects without ever touching them. It was pretty much telekinesis, and the extent to which it worked depended of course on how proficient he was with it. So, right now if he wanted to move something a whole lot bigger than him, he wouldn't be able to since he wasn't skilled enough yet. That'll definitely...
So, he can probably I imagine it's more for the dagger then, you know, similar to like a Jedi or something like that. When his weapon is out of reach, he's able to like zip it back to him. That's probably more of what its usefulness is.
Change over time, but until he uses it more, that's currently what he's limited to. Going back to the class change dungeon now, after killing a mage by throwing his dagger, Sung had earned himself another active skill called Dagger Throw. This increased his damage whenever a dagger was thrown and would become more accurate the more proficient he was with it.
See, that's interesting because that could combine really nicely with his other ability, you know? If he can throw his weapon and pull it back to him, like almost as if it was on a string.
A neat synergy he found with his Ruler's Touch skill was that by applying
Another thing is like, if he could control the weapon still, like if he could throw it and then just control it and go zip, 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 you know, like the fucking whistle from Guardians of the Galaxy.
And he was with it. A neat synergy he found with his Ruler's Touch skill was that by applying it to his dagger whenever it was thrown,
literally what I was saying.
He could increase its momentum and make it do even more damage.
That's not, I didn't even say that. I did not even suggest that.
And as we know, that was simply a means to promote him to Shadow Monarch. An upgrade that would unlock 2 skills, a title, and a whole bunch of bonus stats. His new title gave him a 1% stat increase for every 1% health he was missing, and he would keep it equipped unless he knew he was going up against beast-type monsters.
1% stat increase for every 1%.
His skills were all related to his class, and they were the abilities to create shadow soldiers and store them. Shadow Extraction creates soldiers by extracting mana from a recently deceased target, while Shadow Storage allowed them to be stored within his shadow. They could then be summoned freely at 0 cost to him, then absorbed back whenever he wanted.
Crazy.
The number he could store was always less than the number he could extract, but if there was ever a time when a battlefield was riddled with targets for shadow extraction, those extra numbers would certainly make a difference.
Yeah.
Even if they were only going to be present for that battle specifically. The extras would all be returned to the void once the battle was finished, since their existence was, after all, only possible when in the vicinity of him.
Yeah, that's
anyway, with Sung...
That's a good point. He's got his own little army and own little force that he can summon himself, but that's not the limit of his summons. I completely forgot about that. That's interesting. So essentially, Jinwoo could summon an even bigger force than the force he stores.
Being at level 51 now, it's hard to say whether he's individually as strong as an S rank, but when you add all the powers and shadow soldiers which fight alongside him, his overall rank would definitely be up there. This is the level he's at the end of Season 1, meaning in Season 2, he's already most likely one of the strongest hunters in the entire country. That's just how strong Sung Jin Woo is so far. His current power level going into Season 2. But yeah, that's a quick spoiler-free overview of Sung's power. If you want to see the full video covering the rest of it, then you can watch that over here. My next video will be the episodic cut content, so if you want to know how the anime differs from the manhwa and novel, be sure to subscribe because that'll be coming out soon.
Cool.
Until then though, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time.
Thank you so much, AniNews. That was awesome. That was awesome. As someone like me who really wanted to like learn a little bit more about this, especially with the strength stuff, and hopefully a bunch of you watching this too were really curious about this. I loved this video because, like I said, this is an anime that moves very quickly. It's super fast paced. So much is happening. I mean, season 1, I was pausing like every damn 10 minutes when something was popping up on the screen. I say 10 minutes, or like 2 minutes. Because the amount of like random bits that would pop up, and the anime moves so quick that it doesn't explain them all. Which, to be honest, is like removing a cliche that you get in quite a lot of other anime, you know? Because you always get the cliche where everything is over-explained. Where they treat the audience like we're completely stupid, you know? They'll like, if they get a weapon, they'll explain where the weapon comes from, what the weapon does. They'll go into detail about the weapon. And they won't show up like a thing like, oh, you know, the blade of, this is a pretty good blade. They won't do anything like that. They'll be like, oh, the blade of blank. From the tribe of blank, it inscribes blank, and I heard that blank, and they'll go off for like 5 minutes about the fucking sword. But in Solo Leveling, it is the complete opposite, right? In Solo Leveling, they treat the audience in a more intelligent kind of way. They give us a bit more credit, and I think that isn't so much to do with them thinking the audience is on a different level. I think it's more them just not having the time to like hold our hand through this anime, you know? Like, it's literally like, we're doing a jog, if you can't keep up, you're staying behind. That's what it's like. So, with an anime like Solo Leveling, with that kind of pacing, you're gonna miss stuff. So, understanding just how strong Jinwoo is has always been a discussion for anime-only viewers in the comment sections of my Solo Leveling reactions, where we're trying to work out how tough he is. And people guess, you know? Based on this, he's high A rank, low A rank, low S rank, you know? Like, everyone's always guessing. And the truth is, well, unless you're a manga reader, it's not called a manga, right? Unless you read the book, you don't properly know, and it's just going to be guesswork, you know? But this helps us a lot, because now we know how strong he was at the end of Season 1. And the end of Season 1 and the timing of it, so which is how Season 2 works, it pretty much goes straight into it. So we know how strong he was at the beginning of the first episode of Season 2, because there was no real time jump between those 2 episodes. And now he's in the dungeon. That red gate is his first sort of interaction. We know how strong he was and his leveling up ability. Meaning, he levels up quicker in the red gate. How strong is he going to be when he comes out of that gate, you know? The main thing I took away from this video was a lot of his skills and attributes and how they add to his combat as well, which I find incredibly interesting. Honestly, though, it is super intriguing learning more about Jinwoo like this, you know, his strength, his abilities, and how they are going to attach themselves to his skills, and as he ranks up his levels as well, how everything is just going to stack on top of each other, and where he currently is now, and all the hidden like abilities and like techniques he can do, you know, from telekinesis to stealth mode to extra attacks against that opponent, this opponent, to his summoning abilities, as well as being able to summon from his shadow, but also that doesn't affect his mana, and he can pull from using his necromancy ability from bodies on the field as well. Jinwoo is just insane. Jinwoo is the Superman of anime, man. He just ticks every box. Jinwoo is the character that your friends pretend they're doing when you're play fighting, something like that, you know? It's like, no, see, you can't use magic on me because I have magic protection. No, you can't use a sword on me, I got sword protection. No, I can actually fly so you can't fly away. Oh, and also, yeah, I can summon an army of demons. There they are. Yeah, and each of them is just as strong as me. And that's like, you're like, motherfucker, I ain't playing with you anymore. I ain't playing no more. You're not fun to play with. That's Jinwoo. The guy is just going down. The guy has a bingo card of stats, and he's like, yep, just working his way through every single one that exists. And honestly, I love that. That's why I love this anime as much as I do, because it is essentially pure epicness in anime form. It is a character that's leveling up and getting stronger, and we are just here for that journey. And I love that. I love it. I love the cheesiness. I love the fights. I love the gorgeous animation. I love just watching Jinwoo get stronger. My main love from Solo Leveling comes from that. It comes from the idea of how strong is Jinwoo, how strong is he going to get, and the development of that character. That is where my love for this anime really like stems from. As like that is like at its core, and everything else around it is just amazing too. But yeah, honestly, it is a fantastic anime. If you like these kind of animes, then it's up there, you know? It's fun, it's gory, it's violent, it's awesome. You know, if you're not a fan of these kind of animes, then yeah, you're not going to like Solo Leveling, because it is literally the poster child at this point. But yeah, great video. Really enjoyed it. Really well like put together, by the way. I love this. Shout out AniNews. Link to their channel is in the description. Thank you so much for putting together this video. And yeah, well, I hope you guys enjoyed my reaction to episode 2 yesterday, and I guess I'll see you guys on the Saturday coming up for episode 3. And yeah, make sure you like this video to support it. Like it, subscribe, leave a comment for the algorithm. And let me know, what are you guys thinking about Solo Leveling Season 2? Did you guys like Season 1? What was your favorite moment from Season 1? What's your favorite Jinwoo ability? If you could have one Jinwoo ability, what are you going for? What's your favorite ability? What do you think is like, what's your favorite one of his abilities? Because the telekinesis one's kind of cool, you know? And is there another anime like Solo Leveling you guys think I would like? What would you compare this anime mostly to, you know? I'd say, in a way, with the leveling up process, maybe Danmachi, but honestly, it's nothing like Danmachi. It's not even close. You know, it's, I mentioned Jujutsu Kaisen, but it's not even like Jujutsu Kaisen. So I don't know. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed my reaction. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have an awesome day, and as always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.